Thank for their hospitality, KFYI, our affiliate in Phoenix. We are in Phoenix, right? Yes, Phoenix, Arizona. I have been traveling around so much, I don't even know where I am from time to time. Yesterday was a really tough day, operating on about 3 hours of sleep yesterday and at Charlie Kirk's offices. Yesterday was the first time as a national broadcaster, in fact, in my almost 50 years of doing this, yesterday was the first time we ever left a studio because of a bomb threat. And you didn't know that, but at the last half hour of our program, there was a bomb threat. And because Pat was in the studio in Dallas, we let him take that last half hour, and I made my way over to the Charlie Kirk studio. But that's never happened before. Every day, every single day, it's like, nope, never seen that. Never done that one before. But it was an honor to sit with Charlie Kirk, his team. They are doing really, really well. My wife and I had a long talk with Erika Kirk, and she is amazing. She is truly amazing and really led by the Lord and very, very clear. Obviously still mourning deeply, and I really feel for her. I really feel for her children. But she is, I said to her yesterday, I said, because she asked for, some ideas on some things. And I said, you really need to read all you can about Jackie O, because Jackie O you're very much Jackie O so far. But she was responsible really for that legacy of JFK because she guarded it so well. And as I said that, she looked at me and she said, thank you so much. She said, it's just so hard because I go home and I have to, Gigi doesn't know, she didn't know really where Dad is. And, I don't want to explain what a coffin is and everything else to my 3-year-old. And she said, I go home and Gigi's like, Mom, will you play? And so she said, I get down on the ground and I'm playing with Gigi. And she said, it's just so hard. And I thought, wow, that is exactly what Jackie O did. Remember, Jackie O was planning the funeral in one room, and the very next room was John's birthday party. She was holding that at the same time, and she would go from room to room because she didn't want to disrupt John's life. I mean, we're seeing history play out, and she is a colossal figure in history, and I think we will all come to see that. Now, let me tell you about what's happening. Sinclair. Oh, by the way, let me thank Premier Radio before we go any further. Let me thank Premier Radio and Salem Broadcasting. Another first yesterday that you didn't know. I compete, and Premier competes against Salem Broadcast. I have stations all over the country, and my stations are, in competition with Salem. Charlie Kirk was on Salem. I'm on Premier. I don't believe this has ever happened in the history of broadcast radio. 2 companies said, lower our flags, we're all one, and allowed me to go over to Salem and broadcast on Salem radio right after my premiere show. So stations, I was on 2 competing stations yesterday, and that's never happened before that I'm aware of. And I just want to thank Phil Boyce and Julie Talbot. Phil is from Salem, and Julie is from Premier, and it was just heroic what they did yesterday. So thank you for that. That's really everybody coming together and just saying, doesn't matter what contracts say. This is important. All right, so let me tell you about Sinclair. Sinclair, yesterday, that's an ABC. That most of their TV stations are ABC. They're going to air a special, a remembrance of Charlie Kirk during the Jimmy Kimmel Live segment or slot on Friday, which will probably get bigger ratings than Jimmy Kimmel ever did. But they're airing that on Friday because they have indefinitely suspended Jimmy Kimmel's show. And also Nexstar did as well. Now, they're the 2 largest station groups. These giant groups, they have, 25 or 50 stations all across the country, and then they say, hey, ABC will take these shows from you, and they become ABC affiliates. And yesterday, two companies said, we're not doing it. We're not airing the Jimmy Kimmel thing. That really kind of is shaking a lot of trees. Now, I want you to know, I am not for government involvement in any of this. Government should not be involved in this at all. And the left is saying, Brendan Carr, who I hope will be on this program today, Brendan is a friend of the program, and I have deep respect for him. But they're saying that he was involved in this by threatening that the FCC will take action, or maybe he was just speaking out about it, and they implied that the FCC was going to get involved and they were going to start fining these stations, yada, yada, yada. I don't believe that, especially with Sinclair. Sinclair didn't need any help to cancel Jimmy Kimmel. Zero. I don't know the people at Nexstar, but I don't believe that that's what happened. And even if it was, I want to give you some comparisons here, and see and ask you the question, why are they concerned this time, but they weren't last time? So they've decided that they've canceled it, and now ABC is having to look into the plans for the future for Jimmy Kimmel. So, Jimmy Kimmel's ratings are awful, awful. He's not in, when everybody celebrated that Tucker was fired from Fox. Everybody on the left celebrated this. He was the number 2 show on all of cable. Okay? All of cable, all of the, SpongeBob SquarePants, everything that is on cable, he was the number 2 show, and they canceled him. Now the left is all upset because the number, I don't even know. I went on Grok. I went to Nielsen. I went to ChatGPT. It couldn't even tell me how bad the ratings rank is. I could only get it past the top 20. And Jimmy Kimmel is nowhere to be found in the top 20 of broadcast shows. So you can't even compare the two. You can't even compare the two. But now everybody is upset because Disney, the owner of ABC, they need the green light for ESPN's deal to buy the NFL network. And now if the FCC gets involved, is that, well, gee, wait a minute. So you're worried about, you're worried that just the action of you not doing something that the president is for, the government might judge you differently. They might take some sort of action. This goes into everything we have found out about Facebook. This is everything we found out about Twitter. All they have to do, this is what the Biden administration was doing. This is what the Obama administration was doing, just flexing their muscles all the time, making quiet threats to companies all the time. But apparently they don't see that. So, so they're canceling now. And, I don't know about ABC, but AOC was taking a victory lap, you remember, on Tucker Carlson. She said that deplatforming works. Deplatforming works. Tucker Carlson is out at Fox News. Have happened to a better guy, she said. He is the person who is most arguably responsible for driving some of the most amounts of death threats, violent threats, not just to my office, but to plenty of people across the country. I don't know how she qualified that, but I would imagine you could say something like that about Jimmy Kimmel with the vitriol that guy is putting out. Supporters, a message to supporters from Ocasio-Cortez's office obtained by Punchbowl News at the time touted her efforts to silence Carlson, who she said was directly responsible for the events of January 6th. So here is an example of someone who is in Congress doing the same thing and taking the victory lap, saying it was me that put the pressure on everybody. Now, you could say that maybe these companies are afraid of Donald Trump. Well, I will tell you that ABC should be afraid. They should be afraid. A $16 million settlement tends to wake companies up. That teaches a $16 million lesson. Hey, let's be careful on what we say. That has nothing to do with free speech. That has everything to do about smearing people. There are things that, the court does take care of. You don't need the government. You need a court. And if you can prove that these people acted in malice and these people were lying about you, you can sue them and win. And Donald Trump just won a $16 million lawsuit against ABC. That makes sure that doesn't usually happen again. Lawsuits tend to focus people. Now, how is this lost on an AOC and everybody else who celebrated when Tucker left? How is this at all unclear when you look at what Jimmy Kimmel said? Jimmy Kimmel got on the air and said lies, absolute lies. He said that the right was doing everything they could to cover up that the shooter was one of us, meaning MAGA people and conservatives. That's not true in any way, shape, or form. Now, he is either the dumbest person in the world, but you generally don't get to that position being dumb and uninformed. And how did you get that past your writers? Did nobody at ABC and nobody at the Kimmel thing say, wait a minute. That's not true. That's not comedy. That's the setup for the comedy. But the punchline hasn't happened yet. You're setting the joke up. And when you're setting a joke up, that's the true part. The punchline is the crazy part, is the opinion part. The setup is the true part. Well, your setup isn't true. How did they miss that? They didn't miss that. Nobody in the room wanted to change that. Nobody in the room wanted to say, wait a minute. That's not right. Because they're agenda driven. That is the way it has been over and over and over again. I don't know how this is missed by the left. And Brian Stelter, who came on yesterday, Brian Stelter was saying, oh, this is the worst thing that could happen to democracy, blah, 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 blah. Well, wait a minute. Hang on just a second. If you are, again, saying that it was Brendan Carr who got on the air and said, hey, we're going to look into this ourselves, and that made everybody move, then let's go back and look at the Facebook and Twitter files. Let's all of a sudden now look at that and say, wait a minute, is that pressure? Because we know it was. So we know that the left was doing that, and nobody on the left had a problem with it. Let's go back and look at all of the cases where pressure had been put onto companies. For instance, my so-called termination, I left Fox of my own accord. However, it was very, very tough to work in an environment where you're constantly under attack. And I was the first person in the history of America to have, how many was it, Stu? I know there was at least 2 or 3 White House advisors from the White House, coordinated from the White House, attacks on me. For instance, the best known one is Van Jones. Van Jones starts a 501c3, and all of a sudden the 501c3, their main objective is to get me fired. After I started talking about him being in the White House. That was coordinated in the White House by a White House advisor. Where was anyone reporting? I used to say that on the air all the time. Where is anyone talking about this? Why is the New York Times talking about this is a White House coordinated attack? Because it didn't fit their narrative. That's why. And they celebrated when I left. I don't know if they still celebrate, but they celebrated when I left. Brian Stelter yesterday was on the air on CNN saying this is, an abomination. It has to stop, blah, blah, blah. Stelter never said that when there was a campaign against me. Never. Not once. Not once. When they did an advertiser boycott, which I believe is exactly the same thing that Sinclair did, they decided that doesn't serve our audience. It doesn't serve our audience. We don't want anything to do with it. Nexstar, I can't, because I don't know them, I can't speculate even on what their motive was. But I know that Sinclair was, we don't want this show anymore. It doesn't serve our audience. That is that company making a decision. And that's what Brian Stelter, Media Matters, the Stop Beck campaign, that's what they said the entire time. Glenn Beck has lost 300 sponsors, and yet it hasn't affected his show or his sponsorship. How did I lose? I never had Mercedes-Benz as a sponsor. Never. But they would call Mercedes-Benz and say, hey, are you going to advertise on Beck's show? No. Another sponsor has decided they're not going to advertise with Glenn. And nobody would clarify that. Nobody would talk about that. But that was their right to free speech. That's how they got away with all of this stuff, saying it was free speech. And you know what? It was coordinated by the White House, and that was my real problem with it. It's coordinated. It was all AstroTurf. It wasn't actually real. You didn't need a campaign to go against Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel has made himself irrelevant in America for a very long time. He's out of step. And if it wasn't this, it'd be something else that would eventually just get his show canned because it's not making money and it's not making any ratings. And eventually, that's exactly what happens to those kinds of shows. But Stelter never said anything about that. He defended their right to free speech, et cetera, et cetera. You had comedians and everybody else say, "Oh, it's fine. It's fine. Don't let the crazy door hit your crazy ass on the way out." That's what they said about me. But now this is comedy. Now the comedians are very, very concerned. This is yet another thing of AstroTurf and yet another lie. If the FCC doesn't go further and get involved, the FCC should not be involved in this. Let the market work itself out, and let the grassroots market work itself out, not these giant organizations that are funded with our tax dollars. All right, back in just a second. First, let me tell you about our sponsor this half hour. It's Rough Greens. Every dog food bag claims to be complete. It's a little hard to believe when the stuff inside is cooked to death, stripped of all the nutrients, and designed to sit on a shelf for literally 2 years. If your dog has been living off that alone, there's a good chance they're running on empty. That's where Rough Greens comes in. It's not a dog food. It's a vitamin and nutritional booster that you pour right on top of their existing food. And it's packed with vitamins and minerals and digestive enzymes and omegas and antioxidants and everything that your dog needs. You'll see a huge difference in your dog's energy and mobility, even appetite. Rough Greens wants your dog to try it first so you know, and you can see the difference pretty quickly. They'll send you a free Jumpstart trial bag so you can see your dog that he loves it before you ever spend a dime. Get a free Jumpstart trial bag today for your dog. It's a $20 value, but you'll get it for free. Just cover the shipping. Go to roughgreens.com. Use the promo code Beck. That's roughgreens.com. Promo code Beck. Roughgreens.com. 10 seconds. Station ID. Nexstar has 200 stations and 42 of them are ABC affiliates. And, every company can decide what they want to do themselves. But you remember, some people are saying, well, they've got stuff in front of the FCC. They're going to do a merger. So the SEC is involved in the government has to okay their mergers and everything else. Well, are you saying that it has consequences? Are you saying that this is the first time that any of these giant companies that have had mergers pending have bowed to public pressure because they're afraid what the government might do? Because it happens all the time. I don't like it. I don't want it to happen, but it does.
Glenn Beck.
Okay, let me tell you about our sponsor. It is Cozy Earth. When you wear clothing, you want it to be really, really comfortable. You want it to look nice. You want something that breathes. My gosh, it is so hot in Phoenix. It is so hot here. It is so hot. And I'm used to Texas, and I'm used to Florida. It's so hot. You want something lightweight, breathable, and built to last. Cozy Earth makes those clothes. Their clothes don't fade. They don't shrink. They don't stretch out after a couple of washes. Everything is incredibly well made, and they're made from the materials, from the stitching all the way to the way the fabric moves. They are high quality. It's one of those things that you don't really get until you try them on. But once you do, it's hard to settle for less. Whether it's their sheets, their joggers, their everywhere pant, you'll notice you're more comfortable more often. When something works well, you'll find yourself reaching for it constantly, and that's the way you'll feel with Cozy Earth products. CozyEarth.com, CozyEarth.com. Upgrade your comfort. Use the code BECK for up to 40% off everything. It's Cozy Earth, built for real life.
We're raising money for Charlie Kirk's family. Go to givesendgo.com/912project.
Welcome back to the Glenn Beck program, and Stu Bergier back in Dallas today. Thanks for coming out yesterday, Stu, and being here. It meant a lot to me, and I know the people at TPUSA as well.
Yeah, it was awesome for them to host us. Just great people.
It really was.
And
Very
a great
nice
organization. So I was glad to be part of it.
So what is your take on the Jimmy Kimmel stuff, Stu? Where am I missing it?
Well, I think you're going to get pushback from both sides probably on it at some level, which, I guess you're used to at this point. This is your life. I think the left is going to say there is pressure from the government here, and they're very upset about that. Now, I can't even note how I feel about that because I'm so overcome by rage at the hypocrisy of them complaining about government cracking down on speech. I can't even. Twitter files. Thank you. I mean, there's 100 million examples of this. Twitter files is a great one, though. The standard we had to hit to prove that story mattered was like we needed to have Joe Biden pounding on the windows of the office building at Twitter, screaming at them to take off individual conservatives. That's the standard we had to hit for that story to matter. We have all sorts of emails from the government pressuring these companies to say, pull down this speech. They shouldn't be able to say this. They shouldn't be able to say that.
And the White House is very concerned about this, and the White House is thinking about taking action.
Yeah, and I think like that part of it too. And it was behind the scenes. Now it was also public, but it was more than that behind the scenes. Now we might find out that this was going on behind the scenes with Brendan Carr. I don't know. We'll talk to him about it. We'll ask him. And it's hard to separate the hypocrisy here and how infuriated I am that they would even make these arguments to even come up with what my preferred policy would be, which I think is pretty similar to yours. If the left wants to join in unity to work with us to defang all of these three-letter agencies from going through and ruining all of public life, I cheer it on. Put a bill on there today, Chuck Schumer.
Me too.
We will all vote for it. I would love that. These are all of their organizations with their rules organizing these policies that are lining up against private interests. This is all their stuff. None of us wanted any of it.
Right. And this is why you don't make those agencies more powerful. This has been our point the whole time. You make them powerful. Somebody that you don't like comes in and wants to play the game the way you've been playing. You're not going to like it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they're accusing us of doing. Wait a minute. Doing what you were doing? Using the agency that you created to do these kinds of things, the IRS targeting conservatives, the FCC targeting conservatives, the White House targeting conservatives. I mean, yesterday the FBI their Arctic frost probe was released. This is the FBI targeting 100 GOP groups. Okay. Including the Republican Party, the Republican National Committee, the RNC, the Republican Attorney General Association, Trump political groups. They were all placed under FBI investigations. Okay, it was part of this Operation Arctic Frost, and it was politically investigating Trump, using partisan FBI agents and DOJ prosecutors so they could improperly investigate everything about the Republican Party. Now, nobody's saying anything about that. I want to defang the FBI so it cannot do that to the DNC or to the RNC. I want to defang this. This is what we call the weaponization of government. And if you don't like it, like Stu said, we will stand with you shoulder to shoulder to defang these things. Shoulder to shoulder, I will stand right with you saying the government shouldn't have the power to do that. Let's get rid of this agency, or let's defang this agency to the point to where it can never target anybody on any side unless you're breaking the law. That's what I want.
Yeah, I'm fine with getting rid of the government licensing of these stations. There's all sorts of stuff we can go down if this is what you actually want. But of course it isn't. They want all of this power. I mean, Glenn, we talked to a man who the Department of Justice sentenced to prison for posting a Hillary Clinton meme.
Yes. Prison.
They sentenced him to prison for it, not the prison of the Hollywood home of Jimmy Kimmel, where he now has to get paid tens of millions of dollars to stay home because a bunch of the stations that carry him don't want his show anymore. Not that. They wanted to put him in prison. He lived through a decade-long legal struggle to fight off prison time for posting a meme. This is insanity, Glenn. This has happened over and over again, and the hypocrisy is there. But as you point out, the question here is, and I don't think, and this is, of course, the problem with today's media, I don't think many people actually listened to the entire Brendan Carr interview. Again, we can ask him about this ourselves. I'm sure he'll come on with us today or tomorrow.
Yes.
But, he talks often about, they're like, I think it was Benny Johnson who was interviewing him, and he kept asking him, well, what do you think? Should he be pulled off the air? And what he said over and over again, he didn't take a position on that because he said, it's very possible we might need to be the judge in a case that comes up. Now, we have to deal with this our entire lives. Our business is built around whether the FCC deems us able to broadcast.
I was 13 years old when I had to take a test at the FCC office in Seattle, Washington. 13 years old, trying to get my third phone license.
I don't even know what a phone is because it's not the kind of phone we talk on. I had to get a third phone license at 13 years old so I could just talk on a microphone. Okay? That's how crazy it was. I've dealt with the FCC my whole life. I despise the FCC. I despise them. But I know their rules, and I abide by their rules because that's the rule of law. You want to get rid of the FCC? I am with you. But you know why the right or the left doesn't want to do that? Because they have used the FCC to strangle people like Rush Limbaugh, me, Sean Hannity, anybody. They've used them when they had control to strangle us almost to death. And yet we still survive. You know why? Because ours is real. Our people actually listen to us. It's not like Jimmy Kimmel that is, Jason, Jason's still doing the research trying to find out what Jimmy Kimmel's actual ratings are. What place is he that so far that you can find in all of, remember, Tucker Carlson left when he was second in all cable news. Where is Jimmy Kimmel's show ranking on all network shows?
So this is complicated because of ratings. On one of these I can find he's around 150th, but on another one I'm doing, it ranks about 120 shows on primetime shows. He ranks anywhere from 95 to somewhere between 110 and 120.
Okay.
Yeah. So dead last, pretty much, in all of these.
Right. And he's in the group of, you know what? Find the ones that are around, in the 90s. Find the shows. Let's see if anyone has ever seen any of these shows that are at 110.
Yeah, and we've mocked Stephen Colbert for losing tens of millions of dollars as he has been doing. He crushes Jimmy Kimmel in the ratings. Just talking about Colbert, who is a complete failure. He's still dominating when it comes to this. And what's funny about this is the essential concept here is that Trump doesn't want anybody making fun of him, and they're trying to get everybody thrown off the air, all of his political enemies. I'm sorry, one place you can go and hear jokes about Donald Trump probably tonight, I don't know if he's on hiatus, but is Stephen Colbert's show, who's still on the air. We had this whole situation with South Park where they're constantly mocking Donald Trump. The merger still went through. There is no reason to believe that Donald Trump is trying to get everybody off the air that disagrees with him. This is a pretty unique case. This is a case in which Jimmy Kimmel, which, by the way, he wasn't really even making jokes about Donald Trump. He was making, he was basically mocking the situation. I mean, he wasn't mocking. He was also mocking Trump, but he was mocking.
He was lying.
Yeah, he was lying about the situation.
Offense. He's lying. I don't care if you want to mock. I think you're a despicable human being. You're not changing my view on that. Mm-hmm. So continue to mock all you want, Jimmy Kimmel. You're wrong for mocking a situation like that. But you were lying. That's where the FCC will get involved. If the FCC does get involved, because the big thing with the FCC is, are you serving the public interest? Openly lying about something is not serving the public interest. That's the thing with the FCC, okay? They're not making something up. You are knowingly lying about a very important thing. Yeah, imagine. This would be like Johnny Carson, or who was the guy? I think it was Carson. After Martin Luther King is shot, if he would have gone on and said, it was Martin Luther King's family that killed him. It was all his supporters that killed him. That's what Jimmy Kimmel did. That is the same exact example. It was the Democrats that killed RFK. They're going to do everything they can to make sure that that it's not found out that the shooter of RFK was actually a member of the Democratic Party. Johnny Carson wouldn't have done that because there was no evidence of that. In fact, all of the evidence went the other way, the exact opposite way on both of those examples. You can't do that. That's just lying. You're not serving the public. What you're doing instead is you are hurting the public and the public's interest and hurting the republic. That's stuff you can get sued for, bare minimum, and maybe lose your license.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, of course, what Trump has done with some other lawsuits when they've lied about this stuff. He's sued them directly and won, or at least pressured them into settling, which, again, all this stuff is stuff you could complain about if you're any other party on earth but the modern Democrats.
Correct. And here's how you solve it. This is how I have solved. When Van Jones in the White House came to complain and put pressure on Fox, went into Roger Ailes' office and sat down, Roger said to them, look, if he's made a mistake, we'll correct it right now. Just give me a list of all the things that he said is untrue. They couldn't produce a list because there wasn't anything. They came back 2 weeks later and said that I had said that Van Jones had gone to prison when he only went to jail. And I corrected that. That night, I corrected it. But that was the extent of my lies, okay? They said I was lying about everything. The way to correct that is to point it out and correct it. Jimmy Kimmel is not willing to correct this. Now, he might be now, but he wasn't then. If you got it wrong, you lead with your mistakes. The next night you go on and say, you know what, I said something and I was wrong about it. Yeah. We got our facts wrong. That's how you solve it. But they're never willing to do it. Look at Colbert. The facts are you suck. Your ratings suck, and nobody wants to sponsor your show. You're costing $40 million more than what the company makes. It's not workable unless you're in a communist country. It doesn't work. And what does he do? He lies. He gets an Emmy for standing up and saying, Trump is targeting me. It's just not, it's not workable. It's not workable in a free society.
I would have been okay with Colbert if he had just come on the next day and said, actually, I said something the other day. I made a mistake. I do suck. That's actually the reason for all of this.
All right. Back in just a minute.
All right. What do we have? Buffalo, Miami tonight? Yes. What do you think? Over or under 69.5 yards? I don't know, more or less for Tua. He's been playing well. Can he get one touchdown? I think there's a good chance of that. I'm building my lineup right now on Prize Picks, and it's just daily fantasy sports. It's simple, it's easy, it's fun. You don't have to do weeks and weeks of research. You don't have to do building lineups and worrying about all this stuff. You just basically go in there and you pick more or less on several different stat categories, and you can win tons of money. You get Dolphins, Bills, Cowboys, Bears, Chiefs, Giants, all sorts of great matchups going on. Of course, Eagles, Rams. Prize Picks built on skill, not chance. And once you start making lineups, it becomes really fun to test your instincts and enjoy the games even more. Download the app today. If you use the code STU, you get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. The code is STU to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. It's a lot of fun. You'll love it. Prize Picks, it's good to be right.
Freedom's like a wild horse. If you don't grab the reins every once in a while, you're liable to catch a hoof to the face. And trust me, that ain't pleasant. Beck will be right back after this.
There's a time and a place for rolling the dice. Maybe a game of Yahtzee. You can do that. When it comes to the title, though, of your home, the document that proves you own your home, that's not something you want to leave up to chance, because the truth is title theft is real and it's growing. Cybercriminals have figured out how to forge your signature and transfer your deed and start taking out loans against your home without you knowing. And since this crime doesn't trigger alarms or trip wires like traditional identity theft, you don't usually even find out until it's too late. Home Title Lock is the one service I know of that actually exclusively focuses on this threat. They constantly monitor the title to your home. And if anyone tries to tamper with it, even a little bit, they alert you immediately and mobilize a U.S.-based restoration team to help lock it back down. If you're already a victim, they will work to help restore your home's legal title and protect you moving forward. And if you want to take a bunch of risks, and if you want to, you can do that. Go take a road trip. Have some gas station sushi if you want to take some risks, but don't roll the dice with your house. AI is a big part of this as well. It's making it much, much easier for people to do this crime, and it's changing the world, we know, but don't let it change the name on your home's title. Go to HomeTitleLock.com, HomeTitleLock.com. Use the promo code BLAZE, HomeTitleLock.com. The promo code is BLAZE. Protect your financial future with Home Title Lock at HomeTitleLock.com. The promo code is BLAZE.
Welcome to the Glenn Beck program. We're glad you're here. Jason's still trying to figure out how low Jimmy Kimmel really is. He's got him down to a category of what shows his show is competing with. And one of them is, of course, everybody's favorite, Muppet Mayhem. I didn't even know Muppet Mayhem was a show, let alone that the Muppets had a show on at this time, let alone Muppet Mayhem. But that's how few people were watching Jimmy Kimmel.
I've never heard of these.
I will say, Glenn, this Muppet Mayhem seems to be a miniseries featuring Dr. Teeth and Electric Mayhem. The actual band. All right. This sounds incredible. Right, well, I actually really want to watch it. Dr. Teeth is
good. What are the shows, Jason?
Totally Funny Animals, game shows. I Can See Your Voice, The 1% Club, Raid the Cage. I've never heard of any.
I've never heard any of those. That's how low Jimmy Kimmel is rated. That's how low. But we have a responsibility to keep him on the air. No, we don't. We have a responsibility to keep our republic in check. And by the way, for those on the left that are saying, the government is targeting Jimmy Kimmel. Okay, I want that to stop too if that's true. So I'm with you on that. But guess who I have on as a guest, coincidentally? Peter Navarro. The guy the left threw in jail because he was politically targeted by the left. We're going to talk to him about how he feels about that and Jimmy Kimmel being targeted.
Is Glenn Beck.